Welcome back. The story of Juliana Redding remains one that haunts those who followed it intently, despite the fading prospects of any real resolution. Countless ambitious young people flocked to Los Angeles, dreaming of carving out a spot in the entertainment industry, and while a handful succeed in forging vibrant, rewarding careers, others head back home feeling crushed or persist in pursuing that distant breakthrough. One such hopeful was 21-year-old aspiring actress Juliana Redding, who left Arizona for Santa Monica in 2005. Yet her journey would veer into a series of startling developments before culminating in heartbreak. The handling of her case sparked widespread doubts about whether genuine justice was truly achieved. To this day, Juliana's loved ones wrestle with the agonizing truth that the individual behind her savage killing might never face full responsibility. Let's explore the details of this case. From everything known, Juliana Redding enjoyed a joyful and satisfying upbringing in Tucson, Arizona, attending South Point Catholic High School there. Upon finishing school, she chose to relocate to California to chase modeling gigs while remaining fairly near her relatives. Juliana had shared with her parents, Patricia and Greg, her aspiration to launch a boutique one day, although her deepest ambition was to establish and manage her own enterprise. Even after settling in Los Angeles, Juliana stayed deeply connected to her family. She phoned her parents frequently to give them news about her daily experiences and upcoming aspirations. They often sent text messages back and forth, and she would sometimes travel back to Tucson for visits. By 2008, Juliana was taking classes at Santa Monica College and residing on her own in a charming bungalow in Santa Monica. As she sought out modeling and acting roles, Juliana waited tables to cover her expenses. She appeared happy with her circumstances then. But suddenly, everything shifted into tragedy on March 16 of that year. It started when her mother, Patricia, noticed she couldn't get in touch with her daughter. What is established is that on March 15, Juliana had spent time playing golf before heading back to her bungalow, where she relaxed that evening watching television, primarily reruns of Seinfeld. The following evening, Patricia got a phone call from Juliana's neighbors reporting they hadn't spotted her throughout the day. They noted that her dog remained inside the bungalow, yet the place felt unusually silent and vacant. Becoming more worried, Patricia continued trying Juliana's phone, wishing for a response. But no one picked up, and Juliana didn't return her mother's calls. Initially, Patricia figured Juliana was simply occupied and would reach out soon. But by 6 p.m., with no word still, she sensed something gravely amiss. She reached out to authorities and asked for a welfare visit. After describing the concerns thoroughly, police arrived at Juliana's bungalow and checked the exterior, at first seeing nothing unusual. Her vehicle sat in the driveway, indicating she ought to be there. Still, no noise or activity came from within. Upon entering the residence, though, officers quickly realized something was wrong. A potent scent of natural gas permeated the space, and they spotted a candle lit near the entryway. Digging deeper, they traced the gas odor to the stove, which someone had turned on deliberately. Yet the flame wasn't ignited, turning the whole bungalow into a potential disaster waiting to happen. Then, the officers uncovered a far more dreadful sight. After looking through the house, they located Juliana in the bedroom at the rear. Sadly, she had already passed away, and it was evident right away that she had been strangled. The location clearly displayed indicators of a fierce fight. Later analysis showed that Juliana's own DNA appeared under her fingernails, implying she had struggled desperately to pry the assailant's grip from her neck. Though clues to the perpetrator were scarce, one detail stood out prominently. The person who entered had purposely activated the gas, seemingly trying to explode the bungalow and erase all signs of their actions. If the intruder's scheme had succeeded, a great deal of the proof at the site would have vanished. The stove gas was obviously intended to catch fire from the close candle and trigger a blast. Luckily, due to the bungalow's aged build, the gas didn't build up sufficiently to explode. Detectives then set about piecing together their view of Juliana's last hours. They figured that around 10 p.m. on March 15, an intruder forced entry into her residence. After getting in, the attacker assaulted her, at one stage banging her head against the ground and inflicting a severe wound. Judging from how long and hard the confrontation lasted, authorities thought the perpetrator might have been surprised by Juliana's strong defiance, finally turning to strangulation. Records from her phone later indicated that Juliana had attempted to call 911, but the connection dropped before completing. A devastating clue that she had sought assistance in her dying moments. The neighbors who alerted Patricia informed police they hadn't observed anything especially odd around the bungalow, although they remembered hearing furniture shifting and voices raised around 9:53 the previous night. Regrettably, they didn't consider it significant then. As they noted afterward, it hadn't appeared particularly suspicious. It might have been a casual get-together or a small dispute. At the location, detectives gathered various important items of proof, such as several DNA traces on Juliana's attire, her neck, her cell phone, and the entrance. Processing these at the lab would require time to pinpoint possible intruders. Meanwhile, officers started questioning Juliana's acquaintances and relatives, aiming to assemble further insights into her world and any links that could identify a culprit. Juliana's father recommended that detectives speak with John Gilmore, a man Juliana had dated intermittently. Talking to officers, he revealed he had long worried about his daughter's relationship with Gilmore, portraying him as having an explosive anger. Those worries proved justified. Gilmore had previously damaged Juliana's car door by kicking it and even forced entry into her residence amid an earlier dispute. Upon hearing this, detectives felt they had a promising direction. They promptly tracked down John Gilmore, and it wasn't long before they found him. In interviews, Gilmore said he had visited Juliana's place on Sunday morning, but insisted that even though her car was there, she didn't come to the door. He claimed he detected no gas odor. Peering through the security barrier, however, he saw a candle lit inside. Gilmore conceded that he and Juliana sometimes clashed and, when asked about the aggressive episodes her relatives described, he confirmed they had argued repeatedly. One specific conflict occurred Saturday night. Gilmore said the strain began when he phoned Juliana to say he planned to hang out with buddies. She grew annoyed and ended the call. Afterward, she went out with a friend of hers, as Gilmore joined a gathering several miles away. The pair kept exchanging texts that night, but with ongoing friction. Near 10 p.m., Juliana ceased replying entirely. The following morning, with no response still, he called and texted more, but heard nothing. Troubled, he went over to her bungalow, but after no luck finding her, he departed. Though Gilmore emerged as the main suspect early on, video from security cameras that night exonerated him. Recordings captured him at a Jack in the Box and a clothes store between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m. Moreover, multiple attendees at the party verified his presence there when the assault happened, effectively eliminating him as the perpetrator. When lab results showed that much of the DNA in Juliana's home came from a female rather than male, it fully cleared Gilmore and posed new puzzles for detectives. They proceeded to question all the women in Juliana's life, probing whispers of a potential romantic rivalry or envy. Maybe someone bitter about her appearance, achievements, or way of living. Even after obtaining DNA from those questioned, nothing corresponded to the scene evidence. Around then, another individual came into focus, a doctor called Munir. Deeper probes disclosed that Juliana and Munir met initially in 2007 at her restaurant job, launching a fresh avenue in the investigation. Juliana evidently left a lasting mark on Munir, as he quickly suggested she work as his medical aide. She took the offer, probably welcoming the chance for better income, since restaurant hosting or serving offered low wages amid constant hassle from demanding patrons. But their connection soon went past professional bounds. Juliana ultimately consented to share his home, and in that period, he supported her financially in his opulent Beverly Hills residence. Initially, the setup might have felt thrilling and appealing, but Juliana soon felt uneasy with Munir's conduct. She started thinking he was turning overly controlling, possibly fixated on her. At one stage, Munir proposed marriage to Juliana, vowing to get her a high-end vehicle for her 21st birthday. As an affluent individual, he could certainly afford such gestures. But what could appear kind quickly turned disturbing. Juliana became troubled, particularly given Munir's pattern of lavishing women with costly presents like vehicles and jewels. It's unclear if Munir was overstating their bond from obsession or merely misreading Juliana's feelings. Regardless, his actions grew stranger, and Juliana recognized she had to separate herself. Resolved to take back her independence, she chose to break it off with him. She finally left, moving into the Santa Monica bungalow her father assisted in funding, seeking a new beginning. It was rather unexpected that Juliana and Munir kept communicating post-breakup, which reportedly concluded amicably. A friend of Juliana's disclosed later that the three had traveled to Las Vegas together for another friend's celebration. But appearances were deceptive. When Juliana's father probed Munir's past, he learned something alarming. Munir was married with 3 kids in Lebanon. Sharing this with Juliana, he was sure Munir's relatives knew nothing of her or his other involvements. The discovery devastated Juliana, leaving her stunned and hurt. She told her father instantly that she wanted no further contact with Munir. It seemed the wise choice to sever ties fully and instruct him to stop reaching out. Even with the strain, Juliana's father, Greg, a pharmacist by profession, maintained ties with Munir. They had partnered on a venture, but it collapsed when Greg grew wary that Munir's practices were dubious, potentially unlawful. As details emerged, Munir clearly wasn't the upright expert he claimed to be. Detectives couldn't overlook the troubling timing that Juliana's passing happened nearly a week after the venture soured. This prompted suspicion that Munir knew more than admitted. But his DNA wasn't at the scene, and he had departed the country by then, preventing immediate questioning. Meanwhile, they delved further into his history, uncovering findings that heightened doubts. Officers examined women formerly associated with Munir professionally, as accounts of his dealings with them were dubious. Though no solid proof existed yet, detectives theorized the female DNA at the scene might link to him somehow. Many of Munir's past female colleagues had distanced themselves or knew nothing of Juliana. But doubts intensified upon learning of his prior connection to a 47-year-old woman named Kelly Sue Park. In under 18 months, Munir had wired over $1 million to Park in multiple big transfers. She had worked as a real estate agent and participated in numerous of his projects. Although detectives couldn't establish her involvement in Juliana's death yet, they opted to monitor Park discreetly, aiming to obtain a DNA sample without raising alarm, a tactic that would prove pivotal. Detectives recognized the need for caution. If Kelly Sue Park played a part, warning her might alert Munir too. Thus, they gathered her DNA secretly. Their diligence succeeded when they recovered a discarded cigarette butt from her, submitted for analysis. The findings were transformative. Park's DNA corresponded to traces across Juliana's bungalow. This verified her presence during the assault and, though Munir hadn't returned to the U.S., it heavily implied his participation in some way. Park was soon detained and faced charges for Juliana's murder. In the meantime, Munir disappeared completely, supposedly escaping shortly after her arrest news. Detectives thought he probably returned to Lebanon to evade arrest. Still, a key puzzle lingered: what drove Juliana's slaying? Detectives speculated that Munir compensated Kelly Sue Park out of vengeance. Perhaps furious about the breakup or resentful that the collapsed venture with Greg harmed his standing. A common hypothesis was that Munir dispatched Park to menace Juliana, attempting to coerce Greg into reviving their arrangement. Though conjectural, authorities felt the encounter intensified when Juliana resisted, resulting in a brutal clash that concluded fatally. In legal proceedings, claims emerged that Munir had promised Park a substantial 6-figure amount for his scheme. This idea strengthened after Los Angeles Times reports noted Park's record of menacing those who opposed Munir, supporting the notion she served as his muscle in this sorrowful plot. Park had supposedly performed comparable intimidation for Munir before. She was accused of threatening a client over unpaid commitments. And in another instance, she allegedly harassed a bank official who scrapped a deal with him. When accused of second-degree murder, Park entered a not guilty plea. In spite of the compelling proof from Juliana's bungalow, including DNA linking her there, her lawyers contended that Munir, abroad during proceedings, was the only connection between the women, asserting they never encountered each other. Prosecutors planned to argue Park operated as Munir's muscle, and her intimidation effort on Juliana escalated to killing. But this approach crumbled in court. The judge barred introducing the idea due to insufficient direct proof. Consequently, the state had to depend only on tangible proof from the site. Primarily, the DNA connecting Park to the offense. Prosecutors highlighted that Park was a tall, formidable woman, close to 6 feet, projecting the poise and dominance of someone capable of serving as muscle if directed by Munir. Her demeanor was described as daunting, with an authoritative presence few could challenge. As additional proof came out, conviction seemed probable.
Park's DNA appeared in various spots in the bungalow, on Juliana's garments, the entrance, the handles, her cell phone, and crucially, on Juliana's neck.
Detectives also found her fingerprint and a speck of her blood on a kitchen sink item. The state maintained this was irrefutable evidence of her being inside that night and, since the women were strangers, Park had no legitimate cause to be there beyond executing an assault for Munir. Prosecutors stressed it was undeniable that Juliana was strangled by hand, citing Park's DNA on her neck as obvious indication of her role. Yet securing accountability for Park proved much harder. Just as she had reportedly resisted vigorously the night with Juliana, she refused to yield in court. Her lawyers prepared thoroughly to dispute each proof item, employing all tactics to sow doubt in the case. One alternate scenario from Park's side wondered if she had even entered Juliana's bungalow on the murder night. They noted the absence of witnesses created excessive ambiguity about events. The lawyers also proposed potential secondary DNA transfer, suggesting Park's DNA could have reached the site indirectly, maybe through an item she touched that entered Juliana's residence later. It was an audacious claim, meant to instill reasonable doubt among jurors. The lawyers expanded on this by describing how DNA transfers occur when people share objects, allowing one individual's material to pass unknowingly to another. Put simply, they said Park could have unintentionally carried Juliana's DNA to the site by contacting something the actual perpetrator handled earlier. They cited a particular instance, a towel Park might have used months prior at Munir's Beverly Hills house. Per the lawyers, the killer might have used that towel afterward to clean prints or traces post-assault, accidentally moving Park's DNA to the bungalow. They added that since Park often visited Munir's home, and Juliana had resided there once, unintended transfer was plausible rather than direct crime involvement. On Munir's supposed part, the lawyers claimed neither his split with Juliana nor the failed venture with her father offered sufficient reason for killing. Given Park and Munir's professional ties, they insisted the major transfers from Munir to Park were just valid business payments, funds already due her. The state, conversely, painted a much grimier image. They said Munir had boasted of employing a woman he called a female James Bond, implying she handled hidden and possibly deadly tasks for pay. Prosecutors contended Munir possessed both reason and resources to commission a hit on Juliana. As proceedings went on, the matter grew ever more bizarre and nearly incredulous. Per the LA Times, call logs showed Park had phoned Juliana's employer and was observed near her bungalow the evening prior to the assault since the women were unknown to each other. Detectives thought Park inquired to discover Juliana's routine and entry to her place while plotting the attack. Additionally, both Park and Munir faced scrutiny for supposed roles in a health insurance scam that authorities were examining then. When the jury finally decided in Park's favor, the ruling stunned all. The proceedings stretched to 2013, exceptionally prolonged for such a case. But ultimately, Kelly Sue Park was declared not guilty. As she exited the courthouse, Juliana's relatives and friends burst into furious outbursts, yelling that Park knew her guilt and justice had failed miserably. In the end, nobody faced consequences for Juliana's passing. And the central figure linking everyone in the matter was never interviewed, merely because he had fled. The outcome crushed Juliana's loved ones, understandably leaving them shattered. They issued a statement voicing profound grief and anger at the lack of justice. Worsening it, Lebanon, Munir's native land, lacks an extradition agreement with the United States and is recognized for protecting nationals from overseas charges. This ensured Munir would evade repercussions for his purported involvement while remaining there. Her relatives found it hard to grasp how such strong proof against both Park and Munir didn't yield a guilty verdict. Gradually, they've attempted to accept the ruling. Juliana's mother, Patricia, now paints in her daughter's former room, a serene practice that helps maintain a faint, enduring bond with Juliana. Years later, Patricia explains that painting aids her in dealing, an emotional outlet producing her finest pieces when most fragile. Sometimes, she senses that she, Greg, and their son Patrick remain stuck in 2008, the year of the incident, struggling to progress fully, tormented by Park and Munir going unpunished. Nonetheless, Patricia has discovered fresh meaning via her artwork and healing from breast cancer. She's learned to seek brightness amid deepest shadows. Regarding Munir, he is thought to have rejoined his actual family in Lebanon after leaving the United States, and he still proclaims his innocence today.
He has never been interrogated or charged formally over Juliana's matter.
In 2015, German authorities detained him on medical fraud claims, but it led nowhere. Officials said he permitted an untrained assistant to conduct operations he pledged to do personally. Over 20 patients reported permanent scarring from the work. For unexplained reasons, he was freed and went back to Lebanon, where medical fraud suspicions persist. When detectives linked Park to the 2015 German matter too, she was detained. She encountered charges of conspiracy, deceiving patients, conducting flawed operations causing disfigurement, and swindling insurers of $150 million. But after securing a $1.5 million bond, she evaded authorities' hold yet again. There's no straightforward resolution or comforting end to Juliana's tale. Once Munir's dual existence surfaced, her relatives did all possible to safeguard her. Still, he escaped any true penalty. Some label this unresolved, but inwardly, all recognize the reality, regardless of the robust proof shown. At times, the legal system just falters. Individuals trust in fair procedure, hoping it avoids such lapses recurring, but frequently it fails. We can only wish Juliana's situation acts as a warning and teaching for ahead. If this case captivated you, remember to like the video and subscribe to the Hidden Cases files. We upload true crime stories every night. Until next time, stay alert, stay cautious.